Last week at Methodist Hospital in Dallas, Texas, a gunman entered the labor and delivery unit to visit the mother of his baby who had just given birth to his child. And he brutally gunned down a registered nurse and a licensed clinical social worker, Katie Flowers and Jacqueline Pakua. May they rest in peace. This is one of countless acts of violence against healthcare workers this year alone. And it's not slowing down. In fact, it's increasing. According to a recent survey from Pres Ganey, it shows an average of 2 nurses every hour are assaulted in the United States. And there's 57 assaults on average daily in hospital settings against healthcare workers. It has gone up 23%, the rate of assaults, just in 2022 so far. And it appears to be continuing to rise. I personally have reported on countless, so many that I've lost track, and I am at this point trying to compile a complete list of all of the acts of violence against healthcare workers just in the last 2 or 3 years since I've been reporting on it, and it is a huge undertaking. So in light of that recent tragedy, it kind of led me down a rabbit hole, and I was wondering, what do all of the organizations say about this? Is there any advice that they give to nurses and medical professionals in the moment? In the moment of an active shooter, what is our responsibility? What do they tell us to do? And I am surprised yet not surprised to find that almost none of them even had a position statement on it. They all claim to have position statements if you look it up, but the reality is that they focus only on prevention and training. They want to talk ad nauseum about de-escalation techniques, planning, reunification after the fact, preventing it, threat assessments, teams, hot zones, cold zones, you name it. So as someone that has 2 FEMA certifications and has been through all of that training over and over again, I can tell you it's valuable, and I don't want to say that it's not valuable. But what we need is a hardline, definitive position statement on what nurses and medical professionals are expected to do in the moment of an active shooter. Now, of course, there is no way of knowing how each individual is going to react. We can prepare all we want, but you don't know until you're faced with unforeseen circumstances exactly how you personally will react. But what do you think? I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Tell me what you think our moral obligation is, for example, to our patients. Is it to ourselves? Is it to our patients? What should we do? Now, I did kind of a bit of a meta-analysis, lit research with all of the major organizations. And, I may have missed 1 or 2. So if I did, please reach out to me and send it to me if there's something of interest. But of all of the ones that I looked at, I only saw 2 exceptions. The ANA, they have a position statement or a statement that they released after the Uvalde Elementary School incident. They're supporting some background check act of 2019 legislation, which is great. National Nurses United is pushing for Congress to approve legislation to create workplace violence prevention plans. But the American Hospital Association, I checked several boards of nursing, the American Academy of Nursing, they sent a letter to Congress asking for the creation of a bipartisan national commission on mass shootings. But that was back in 2019 or 2018. And what has happened since then, really? I am calling on these organizations to finally make a real statement, a real position statement. What is nurses' responsibility in the event of an active shooter? Because unfortunately, it is becoming more and more likely that we may encounter this. So I really only found two sources that I felt were of any use. And it may be an unpopular opinion to some of you out there, and that's okay, but it's time that we at least open a dialogue about it. So the first one that I found was minoritynurse.com. And back in 2019, they stated that know in advance you may need to move away from patients temporarily to survive so you can be there to help them later. They quoted David Roberts, a retired law enforcement captain and security consultant, who stated, quote, "Nurses may feel they are abandoning their patients, but the truth is that when faced with a person bent on shooting and killing people, nurses who are determined to remain stalwart and immovable will, in all probability, become victims themselves and incapable of delivering patient care." The next one I found is really interesting because it's not a nursing organization. It's actually the FBI. Believe it or not, the FBI has a statement, a position on gun violence and violence in healthcare settings specifically. They even go so far as to have specific recommendations and areas of concern listed for specialty areas within a hospital, such as MRI, pharmacy, NICU, OR, infectious disease areas, forensic, prisoner areas, etc. It's really interesting. And I have to say that I appreciate that the FBI has taken a stance on this. Now, the thing is that all of the organizations all have some sort of version of run, hide, or fight, you know, which is the common vernacular that we hear in this day and age, unfortunately. When faced with the situation of an active shooter, you really only have three choices, essentially. You can run, you can hide, or you can fight back. Now, it goes into detail about what you should do in which particular circumstance, but the reality is that these things are over with in a matter of minutes, and there isn't really time to think things through, and we will never have all of the information necessary to make an informed decision in that situation, right? We're going to be in a unit and not know what's going on in the rest of the hospital, for example. So we can say that we should run, hide, or fight all we want, but how practical is that? And how helpful is that really? So what I appreciated from the FBI is that they actually reference, in addition to several other response plans, they reference one known as the Window of Life Active Shooter Response, which states a person's first responsibility is for his or her safety. I'm going to say that again. A person's first responsibility is for his or her safety. And this is included, again, in the FBI's statement on healthcare settings and what we should do when faced with an active shooter situation. So I know this is a bit of a controversial opinion or an unpopular opinion, but I think it's time that we at least open a dialogue. What is our moral obligation to our patients? You know, I think personally that it is a situation by situation, right? If you are somewhere where you can grab one or two patients that are ambulatory and you can get them out of harm's way, I think most nurses would do that. If you can't run and you have to hide, close the doors to patient rooms, for example, close the curtains so no one can see in, try to barricade, and fight back if you have to. You know, there's tons of information out there on run, hide, or fight, right? but let's at least be open to having the conversation about it's okay to put ourselves first. That doesn't mean that we are somehow less than as healthcare professionals. It doesn't mean that we don't want to keep patients safe. But what use are we going to be to them? Just like the minorityNurse.com statement stated, we're not going to be of any use to them if we ourselves are injured or killed. That's the reality. And if we stay and we do nothing, the likelihood is that that could be the outcome. So what do you guys think? Can we at least have this dialogue? What should we do in the event of an active shooter situation as a nurse, as a medical professional? Should we prioritize our own safety? Because if you think about it, that's what they always tell us to do, right? Like if you're on an airplane and there's trouble and the oxygen comes down, they always say, put it on you first, right? They always say that. But you know, we all know that when it comes to nursing, we are held to some ridiculous and unobtainable standard oftentimes, right? Where we are not real people anymore. And God knows they, and I mean they as in management, administration, healthcare organizations, they certainly are not going to do what's best for us. We know this, right? The last few years have shown us this. It's undeniable. So should we not take care of ourselves if we can? Should we not protect ourselves if we can? And then when all is cleared, come back and help take care of patients if in fact that is the situation that we are presented with, that is the best option given that particular situation and circumstance and what we know at the time? I say yes. Yes. Now that's not to say that I wouldn't do the opposite in a given situation. Again, it depends, and you never know how you're going to react in the moment. But in my opinion, it is okay to put yourself first as a medical professional in an active shooter situation, because you will not be of any use if you yourself are injured. Who then is going to take care of the other victims if they're all taking care of you? What do you guys think? Let's have a dialogue about it in the comments.